right here on your top right of this video. At any time, you can either go to the website or keep on watching. And as you go through the video, at the very end, there'll be a link that takes you to the website, or during the time, it'll be a link. So if you feel like you've got enough information, you can go ahead and click right here, and it will be a drop down. It'll show you the parts and what you're looking for. Click on that, and sometimes it'll take you to the exact part we're talking about, or it'll take you to the category of parts that we're talking about, or it'll just take you to the website and you can put in the search box what part you're looking for. We thank you for watching. Alright, the video that you're getting ready to watch is going to involve a little bit of danger. So if you don't know anything about electricity, you better go find this breaker. It's going to have a little reset button on that. It's a GFI, normally going to be a 50 amp, and you need to turn it off. This is another example. See, that one's got a little white button. They got yellow buttons. They look different. They're generally going to be in a box that looks similar to this. They should not be closer than 5 feet nor further than 15 feet from your hot tub, and it should have a pigtail that comes out and goes into your tub. So you need to find that breaker before you start and turn it off. Do not get electrocuted. I don't allow stupid people to work on hot tubs, so if you're stupid, quit watching this video. Go find something else to do to kill yourself. Other than that, keep on watching. Alright, ladies and gents, this is the Spa Guy, and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Waterway Executive pumps. I'm going to flip it around so you can see. This particular one says Executive 56 on it. You can see it right there. They also make Executive 48. The basic difference is the body of the motor. So we're going to get into that, how you pick a 48 or 56, but usually it'll say it on there specifically. But we're going to go through how to replace. You can see this thing has gotten locked up because it leaked a long time, so we're going to go through how to repair this, how to take the busted impeller out, replace the front bearing, new impeller, new seal, front bearing, or how to get it off, replace the entire wet end, and the ins and outs of how to do that on a Waterway Executive series. Keep on watching. Alright, so you can see this says Executive 48 on it, which makes it a 48 frame. The difference between a 48 frame and a 56 frame is usually you could just do a simple measurement right here. A 56 or 48 is going to be about 5.5 inches across, and if you measure a 56, it's going to be about 6 1/4 across. So that is 5.5, 6 1/4. That's one identifier. That works on just about any brand. And you can see that this one says Executive 56 on it, so obviously this is a 56 frame. What that means to you is this particular wet end is a 56. You can see the knurls are in the outer version of it, which is going to be the wider bolt pattern for 56. If the knurls were on the inside, that would be the right bolt pattern for this particular setup. You can see these through bolts stick through, and that's what holds the wet end on. So that's the basic difference. The other difference is on an Executive series, we'll move this out of the way, you can have a couple of different setups. This right here, the suction side, is what we call a 2-inch. It measures 3 inches across. You see that right there? It measures 3 inches. The pressure side measures 3 inches across. That is going to be your standard one. So when you're choosing a wet end, to choose one of these, you would choose a 2x2 in a 56 frame if you were replacing it. If it was a 48 like this one over here, you would choose the 48. If you choose a 56 and you have a 48, what's going to happen is the knurls are going to be here, and there is not going to be anything to put the through bolts to. Now what I have done in a pinch is take my old wet end, stick the through bolt in here and heat it with a soldering iron and pull the knurls out and heat them and push them back into the other wet end. That's kind of a little quick thing that you could do in a pinch. Now this right here would be the other Executive that you would find. This one is what we call a 2.5 inch by 2. So if you measure across that, you can see that it measures about 3 5/8 inches across. So that makes that a 2.5 inch, and then it'd be 3 inches here. So it's 2.5 inch by 2. Now the silly thing about this is if you look at the hole, which is really what matters, it's 2 1/4 there, and it's 2 1/4 there. So really the hole size is exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the nut size is larger. You see these, I've seen them on Catalinas for sure. I've seen them on a few Leisure Bay tubs, a few Four Winds tubs, some Dynasty tubs, and you'll see them on some other tubs, but this is very unusual. So make sure which one you have. If the nut here looks larger than the nut here, then you may have a 2.5 by 2. But if they look the same, then it's probably a 2 by 2, which is going to measure 3 inches by 3 inches. So now we're going to get into taking this pump apart. So first things first, I'm going to take the face off. There's 8 bolts in it, and when you tighten these back up, you make sure you don't impact them. You can impact them out, just don't impact them in, because you can break the knurls out of the front of the volute, which is the brass parts that this screws to, and they're basically just heated and pressed in, and that's how they put them in. Now the way I would get this off is, some of the old ones have an attachment. You see this little thing right here? This is real nice that you can use to pry the face off. If that's not there, what I'll do a lot of times is take just a pair of pliers or something and put it here and use that to pull off of. But you can see that it's just as simple to take that little face off, just like that. Just pry it a little bit here and pry it a little bit there, and she will come right off. And there you go. That's what it looks like on the inside. Now you're going to see that it has a wear ring. This wear ring is the thing that separates, it fits up in there, and it separates the suction from the pressure side. If you don't have the wear ring in there, you're going to lose a lot of power, so you got to make sure that that's there, and it just fits right on the front of the impeller, just like that. Always remember, before you pull the motor apart, mark it. That way you can line the face plates and the back plate, the tail plate, back up. You can say I put a mark here and I put a mark there. So you're always going to line those marks up when you put it back together, so your through bolts line up very easily. So the issue here is, you can see I cannot turn that impeller. It is stuck. What happens is, where the impeller is in the seal, this is what the seal looks like, and that's what the back of the impeller. When water gets up in this shaft around here through the seal, it expands this part, and what happens is it expands it and swells it up inside of the seal where it can't turn any longer. That's one scenario. The other scenario is, this is okay, but the water got into the bearing, which is right here inside of this plate, and it's locked the bearing up. The only way we're going to be able to figure this out is we're going to have to take this thing apart, and there's several ways that you can do it. Traditionally, you would do this. You would take this little back cover off. It's just a little cover plate right here. Come on. Pop the little plate off, and you can see that there's a flat screwdriver bit in there, or a flat screwdriver spot. And what you would do is, if all was well in the world, everything was working perfect, you take a big flat screwdriver, hold the impeller right here, and just twist them and break this loose. Problem is, this is all swollen up, so it's not going to give up that easy. So what I'm going to have to do is take the through bolts out, which on a 56 frame is going to be 5/16 bolts. So it's going to be this size right here, 5/16 on the through bolts. If it is a 48 frame, it's going to be 1/4 inch on the through bolts. So they're a hair smaller. That's another way that you can figure out if it's 48 or 56. If it's got 5/16 through bolts, 56, 1/4 inch through bolts, 48. So I'm going to pull this apart, and what we're going to have to do is take the back off first. If it's a 1-speed pump, it's easier to take the back off because there's not a switch in here for the second speed, or to go from the run to the start, or from the start to the run capacitor. If it is a 2-speed, it has a switch back here. So what we're going to do is take the bolts out, the through bolts real quick. And the same thing applies. You can see there's through bolts in here. There's 4 of them. And that's what sticks through and holds the wet end to the motor. So now I'm going to take a flat screwdriver, and on these there's actually little spaces that you can tap on. There's a little spot right there. You can see there's a place to put your screwdriver, and you could use it doesn't take much pressure, so it's no big deal using a screwdriver, but you can see I was able to simply tap that loose. So now what I'm going to do is gently move it like this. And what you've got to be careful of on this particular one, it has a switch. I'm going to unhook these two so we can turn it around so you can see it. And what I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to mark it. I'm going to put white and yellow. And so what I can do is, don't ever try to go from memory, just simply mark stuff. I'm going to do this so I can turn it around and show you. This thing has got this little switch right here, and what that switch does is that switch rides on this centrifugal clutch. I'm going to turn around so you can see it. So when it starts up, it's here. As the motor spins up, the centrifugal force moves it in, and it switches it from the start capacitor to the run capacitor. The key here is a lot of people, when they pull this out, they'll bend this. They'll actually, I've seen it bent like that. And so that is not going to work right. It needs to be dead level straight. If it's straight, you can see that right there. That looks straight. If it's straight, it will work correctly. If it's bent, it will not work correctly. So if you put yours back together and you find that it's trying to not have low speed, or you have to, it won't start on its own, and you can take a screwdriver and put it back here and spin it up and make it start, then most likely this switch right here is bent. And that's easy to do, because if you snatch it off, it'll catch on this bearing right here and it'll actually bend it out. So that's one thing to look for. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the stator, which is the part that spins in there. We're going to take the stator and the entire wet end out of the body. So just find you a little area. It doesn't take much. You don't have to destroy it, just tap it. Hold right here and pull it out. So that is what it looks like. This is what we call a stator. That's the centrifugal part, that's the back bearing, and then you have the front bearing down in here. And so that's what it looks like. So I'm going to get set up for the next phase. Alright, in order to hold this and to turn it off, hopefully we can turn it off, we'll find out. You need a vise. That's the easiest way, and what you would do is protect your stator, of course. You don't just squeeze it in the vise. Take a piece of, what I'm using here is a piece of carpet that I use, and just squeeze it with the piece of carpet in place. Lock it in where it can't turn. Don't damage the stator, you're just trying to hold it where you can try to turn this. Now, a trick that I've always used in the hot tub business, I used to be in the car business. I bought these pliers right here, oil filter pliers, more than 30 years ago. And I use them. They actually work real good on stuff like this and pump unions and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is this lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. If I'm lucky, I'm going to break this loose and it's going to turn off. So I was real lucky in this instance. Sometimes what you have to do is literally I will take the pliers and grab here and start breaking the impeller off. I'll break the face off of it and then start digging, breaking the plastic away. And inside of there, you see how swollen up that thing is. Inside of here is a brass nut that fits on the front of the front of here, that actually is what holds it's the part that threads on basically. And you can see my bearing is locked up as well. This will not turn. So we're going to replace the bearing. And this thing's in pretty bad shape, but it can be reused. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to take this off, we're going to change the bearing, we're going to clean this up, replace the seal, replace the impeller, which is this part, and then go from there. But what I was saying is you can actually break this, break the face off, break, and start cutting, taking a chisel and breaking this away until nothing is left but the nut. Put WD-40 or something like that on it and heat it a little bit, put an impact on it and usually zip it off and save it. So we're going to fix this, clean this all up, change it out. I'll show you how to do the bearing, and we will actually be able to rehabilitate this. Now this is going to be a little thinner than it should be. In fact, you can see it's swollen just a little bit. I'm going to give you a little side view of it. It's swollen just ever so slightly. So we're going to fix that by taking the, once we get the bearing in, we're going to put it back together and run it without the impeller on there, or without the wet end on there, and take a file and clean it up. So stay tuned. All right, I'm going to point out a couple things. You see this little thing here. This was actually here. It went in, and it's called a slinger, and the idea is it's supposed to stay here, and if water escaped the seal, it's supposed to keep it out of the bearing, as well as this little rubber piece right here. You can see there's a little rubber device right there, and that's designed to do it too. But as you can see, neither one of them worked, because water obviously got into the front bearing. Now, another little tidbit is, as long as the tub runs every day, even if you got a little bit of water in this bearing, if it runs every day, it'll keep that bearing clear. If you turn it off for a month or 2 months or 3 months, that's when metal swells when it gets wet, and the bearing swells up and it gets stuck like that. So that's why I never recommend turning your tub off. This is going to be 1/4 inch, and you also got to be careful with this. These will break off, so you got to go easy with them. These actually came off pretty easy. So what we're going to do is pull those two out. You can see it's 2/4 inch, and what that does is it holds the end play on the motor. It actually squeezes the bearing, and that's what sets up the end play for the motor. Now, the next part's going to be a little more challenging. Usually you can take this and actually spin it and just hit it in one spot like that and knock it off. Problem is we can't turn it. So it's going to be a little more challenging to get this off. I use a brass hammer because brass will bend before any of the rest of it because it's soft. And what you're going to start doing is just trying to tap the faceplate off of the bearing. And this may require a little bit of heat. We're going to see. Yep, I'm going to apply some heat. So now we're going to apply heat, and of course this is aluminum. It'll melt relatively easy, so you got to be careful here. Of course, don't burn yourself. This thing is not a little hot. It's real hot. And another aspect is some of these have plastic here instead of metal. This fan part is plastic. If it's plastic, you got to be real careful about heating. But honestly, we're probably going to have to heat it to get the bearing off anyway. So this is not entirely bad. I just don't like heating the aluminum too much, and if you're not real careful, this aluminum will break right here. You can see there's just spokes in there. It'll break around those spokes, so you have to be real careful of that. Yeah, it is enough. It's coming. But now the bearing is messed up, so that adds an extra degree of slackness in this. So if the bearing wasn't messed up, this would probably actually come off a little easier, because when you hit it, it has to move forward to lock the bearing, and then it takes the hit. And of course this thing is going to be a little warm, so you got to be careful grabbing it. But that is what it looks like on the inside. You can see all that trash. A little hotter than I want it to be. So this is the bearing. Now what I would do to prepare this is take a file, clean up right around the bearing surface right in here, to cut it to give it enough room so that it will slide off. And I'm going to work on this. I'm going to clean all this up. You can use this, you can use a wire brush, anything to get the rust off. You can see that it's pretty rusty and pretty messed up. And you want to be able to do a solid pull when you pull your bearing off. Now I have tools to pull these bearings off, and the tools are relatively expensive. If you don't have tools to do it with, you can use a couple of different things, but one thing that's very important is you've got to protect this part. You've got to protect this this thread, because if you mess this up, the new impeller is not going to screw on it, and you might as well not have done anything. So there's a couple of different things that you can do. My guys out in the field, if they don't have the tools for some reason and they get in a bind, they'll do things like putting a pair of pliers behind it and heating it real hot, and then taking a hammer and banging the edge of the pliers and stuff. I don't recommend that. I would put something over this, like if you have the old impeller, cut it open, take the part that screws on here, screw it back on, and use that to pull off of, and use a two-finger puller, something of that nature. So I'll show you my setup and we'll make this happen right now. Alright, so the next step is let's clean the threads up. This is a 3/8 by 16 UNC die, and we're going to slide that over the threads. We're going to clean them so you can do it easily with your fingers. And sometimes you'll have to use the tool on it, but usually you can clean it up with your fingers. Usually it's relatively protected, but that's how you do that. That is a 3/8 by 16 UNC. The next thing you do is you take your old impeller, you take the center part out of it. This is what it looks like inside the impeller. It's just a threaded thing that's actually 1/2 inch. So I screw that onto my thread. And you should really be able to turn that by your fingers, but I've used it enough times that it's gotten, but you want to butt it all the way up. Don't let there be any gap right there. And then what you can do is you put a 1/2 inch socket over it, and that's what you're going to push against. That way you don't damage your threads. You see that right there? That's a little trick that you can use to keep your threads safe, just like that. Alright, next I'm going to heat this, and then I'm going to put this over my bearing like that, and then I'm going to pull against this. So we're going to get her all set up and make it happen right now. Alright, so safety glasses are in order right now, and gloves. So here we go, ladies and gents. I'm going to heat this bearing. It is going to require some heat. And if I use WD-40 on here, it's going to make a mess in here for one thing. If I was out in the shop, I probably would use a little WD, but I think I can get it done without it. Plus, this heat would burn it off. I cleaned it up really good around there with my file and a wire brush, and basically just prepared it. And some of these will surprise you. They'll come off really easy. And there is rubber on the front of this bearing, so you're going to get a little bit of smoke from that rubber. And you don't have to get it red hot. That's not the issue. The issue is just applying some heat to it, and that always helps it move a little easier. Alright, so now I'm going to try to pull it. Let's see what we can do here. So obviously you know it's really hot, so you got to be careful. Put that on there. And I know you're not going to have the luxury of this tool probably, but a two-prong puller will work. And I like to use the impact too, because it gives it a little extra degree of pop. This one came off fairly easily. Now another issue is this is wider than the hole in the tool, so when you get to the end, of course I've already put the pressure on it, so this is not going to be a hard pull. You can see it came right off. So that's what it looks like right there. I'm going to open it up now. Got to keep in mind this bearing's very hot. That's why I got this cloth right here, but that's what she looks like right there. And you can see the back of the bearing is even out. You see how crusty that is? That bearing suffered a while and finally locked up. Now make sure you don't take this off and leave it off. It's got to be on there. But this surface actually is not really bad. So I'm going to clean on this just a little bit and put a brand new bearing back on there. I'll show you how to do it. Here we go. Stay tuned. Okay, for the next step we're going to install the bearing, and what I did is find a socket that will actually fit over the threads over this part. Now in order for this to work, you've got to take this back off that you use to protect your threads. So just simply turn it off, and we're going to, once I get this bearing on, I'm going to put the motor back together, and we're going to spin the motor up and use a wire brush and all that to clean these threads. And you can see that's what it looks like. Now make sure that you didn't leave this ring off. Ring's got to be there. It will not come off over the bearing. So all you do is just put it on a solid surface, stick that on there, take your socket, stick it on there like that. Make sure you got safety glasses on, and just simply tap it right down into place, just like that right there. You see that? That is on all the way in. You still got your ring on. So now I'm going to put the rest of it together. We're going to spin it up, clean the shaft up, and replace the seal and the impeller and put her back together. Here we go. Stay tuned. Alright, so for this next part we've got to clean this. You can see it's got a lot of trash in it. And all I do is just take a flat screwdriver and some brushes, wire brushes, and just scrape it and clean it up. The main thing is, it's not that any of this stuff matters as far as aesthetically, how it looks doesn't matter. You just don't want to keep a lot of corrosion and stuff around in here. You want to get as much of it out as you can so it goes back and this doesn't play a part, because some of this stuff can break loose and get caught back in the system and create problems. The main thing is just clean it up and make it look decent. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is not a critical part of it, but I like to clean them up, make them look nice. So there you go. That's nice and clean on that side, and it is clean enough on this side, so we're going to go with it. So next I'm going to take this and tap it right back on there, just very gently. And you see when it spins, it's easy to do. It just spins right back on there. Now I've got my two bolts, and what I do is reach in here and line this up with one of them. Take your finger and kind of get it started. That's one. And start the other one. Then take your impact, and you don't want to hit it hard, just go easy with it. But a 1/4 inch bit, and just ever so gently pull it up. And as I mentioned before, this is what sets the end play. So you can see how straight that is? That's good. And you can see inside of there's the two bolts going around. It's just a plate. So that is complete. It's ready to go back in the motor. If the back bearing, by the way, needed replacing, you see how easy that spins. It doesn't need it. You would do the same thing I did before, just pull it off, and of course protect this if you're beating on it this way, and just tap one right back on, just like that. Usually the back one doesn't go bad very often. They will, but usually what happens is it'll actually spin in the plate or chatter. And what you can do is pull it out. The bearing's not actually bad, and what we do is just take a punch of some kind and just make knurls around the bearing, push it back in there to keep it from spinning, and put it back together, and that'll solve it. Alright, so just a little heads up, whenever you are messing with the back, always make sure you got that wave washer. You can see that washer is not flat. It holds back pressure on the back bearing, and that's what keeps it from chattering in the back of the pump. That's part of the system. And also make sure that this little switch right here is dead straight, dead flat. Remember, you can bend it when you pull it out, so you've got to inspect that. If you don't have that switch right there straight when you put it back together, it will not have low speed until you hand spin it. Alright, so I'm going to take this back in. You remember we marked it earlier. There's our marks right there. So I'm going to line that up, and I'm going to hook my two wires back up that I undid, that I marked the colors, yellow and white. Making sure my wave washer's in there, and making sure that I do not bend that switch. And lining it back up. You can see where my mark is, and just take your brass hammer and just simply tap it. And that one lined up nicely. And then go to the front and kind of gently tap it, lining it up. And it should go back together fairly easily. If it does not, pull it back apart to see what's wrong. You can see that those things, both parts of the case lined up nicely. Now my through bolts should just go right straight through because they should line up, and there they go. I'm going to just put 2 through bolts in it for right now so I can spin it up and make it and clean this shaft up. So the way I do it is I find 2 nuts that will fit the through bolts and simply hold that one in place. Hold that one in place. And the other thing I do is once I get those both in place and get them tight, I take my brass hammer and go around and kind of tap both covers again to make sure they're completely locked in. Now this should turn really easily. You see how easily that turns? That is correct right there. So now what I'm going to do is, because I'm in here, I don't have a 220 volt source, I'm going to just simply wire this 115 volt on low speed. And you can run it for a short period of time like that. It won't run as fast as it would if it was 220, but it runs enough to use this like it's a lathe and clean this shaft up. So that's what we're going to do next. Alright, so if you look at your wiring diagram right here, you'll see that it says common is 1, low speed is 3 or 4, which is line 2. So in this case, I'm doing just 115 volts. So common would be white and low speed would be black. So what you do is spin that right around just like that, and if you look at the top, common is going to be number 1 right at the top, and black would be number 3 or 4, which is going to be at the bottom. That is properly wired. And then if you wanted to be extra safe, you could hook your ground right there, just like that right there. But we're only going to run this for a moment, so it's not critical, but you want to make sure you don't shock yourself. Now keep in mind, in a 220 circuit, that white wire is hot. In this circuit, this is just 115 volt. I'm going to plug it into a drop cord. So what we're going to do is power this thing up and clean this shaft. Alright, so we're going to power this thing up, just 115 volts, so it's going to run slow, but that's okay. Next, to knock the rust off of here, make sure you have safety glasses on. I'm going to take a pair of pliers that is hardened, and I'm going to just hit this. Watch this. See how it knocks all those big chunks of rust off. Next, I'm going to take a file and start filing and cleaning it up. And what you're trying to do is make it flat where the impeller should screw right on it very easily. And you can put down pressure or up pressure, whichever way you're comfortable with. Doesn't look too bad. So I'm going to take my wire brush and kind of clean this stuff up. It's going to clean the threads up. It's just like putting it in a lathe and cleaning it up. And then finally I'm going to take a little sanding block and kind of finish it. Now we'll check our work. Stop the motor. And you should be able to take your brand new impeller and just simply hold the back and just simply screw it right on there. You see that? See how easily that threaded up? That is clean enough, and that shaft is thick enough to reuse without any issue. So the motor is finished. Next, we're going to rebuild the wet end, put the impeller in, new seal, all that kind of stuff, and we will work from there. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've got a couple of different elements we need to talk about. You can see how nasty this impeller was, or the back of the wet end, I should say. This is called a volute. This is the back part. This is the face. This is the wear ring. This is the impeller. So I'm going to clean this up. Now the way I would clean this up, if I'm going to put a seal in it, first I would take a hammer and a flat screwdriver and knock the seal out. So just lay it on a flat surface like that and just go boop, seals right out, just like that. And you can see that it was sealed in there with silicone. So we're going to reseal it, but first we've got to clean it up. And the worst part is this part back here. I just don't like this stuff staying on here. So what I usually do is, just like I did with the faceplate, is take a flat screwdriver, something of that nature, and just scrape it. Try to break all this stuff loose. And it's not critical that it be perfect, but if you're doing this for a customer, I want it to be as clean as it can be. If you're doing it for yourself, suit yourself, but you don't want this stuff staying on here, because this is pieces of old chemical and that kind of stuff that leaked out, and this is the kind of buildup that it leaves. So you can see, you can take a wire brush and kind of clean up around it like this, and I'm going to go wet it and wash it and clean it up better. Now the next piece, before we go any further, is we know that this has a 1000 seal in it. That's standard for all Waterway Executive wet ends. What we don't know is which impeller it has. This particular one, if you look down inside of this, I'm going to get it close and see if you could see it. It actually says 4 HP right there. I'm not sure if you could see that or not, but it says 4 HP, which makes it a 4 horsepower. Now I usually base it off of the, another way you can do it is on this wear ring on the back, it says 4 or 5 HP on it. Now I usually base it off of the horsepower of the motor. Sometimes you'll see a 12 amp high speed that has a 4 horse impeller in it, which is the case here. But this has a 2.5 inch suction on it. So if it was a 2 inch suction, it would probably have a 3 horse in it. The 2, the 3, and the 4, you will see 2 or 3 or 4 HP written inside of here on the old impellers. The 1 and the 5, it is not written in here, so you would go to the width or go by the amperage. If you have one of these that says 4 or 5, you can see it says right there 4 or 5, then it's got to be a 4 or 5. If it says 1, 2, or 3, then it's got to be a 1, 2, or 3. It's actually a little bit thicker. It would be about that thick. So if you choose a smaller impeller, but you choose and you have a 4 or 5 wear ring, it's not going to seal right. So you've got to look at both of those cases. And this is an example. You can see that this one says 3 HP inside of it right there. So the difference between a 3 and a 4 thickness wise, you can see that a 3 or 4 is quite a bit thicker than a 3, although this is the same. The difference is the total overall height of them is going to be different. As far as that part is slightly back from the 4. So if you choose, you got to choose correctly, because if you choose a 1, 2, or 3 and this is the wear ring you've got, it's not going to seal up enough. If you choose a 4 or 5 and you have the bigger wear ring, then it's not going to fit, because this is going to be, the other wear ring is going to be too tall. So just make sure that you choose wisely here, and I'll show you some examples of the other wear ring in a moment. I'm going to go clean this up, and I'll bring a wear ring and a fresh seal and some silicone, and we'll put all this back together. Alright, so I cleaned the back up best I could, and this stuff gets stuck. I've scraped it, wet it, and washed it off and got as much as I could get off. But that's not critical. That's the outside, and it's going to be, and of course you can tell that the wet end was in this, the pressure or pressure side was in the 12 o'clock position, because you can see that it leaked down. The next thing I'm going to do is, right in here where the seal fits in, you can see there's a little bit of silicone left. Scrape that silicone out of there. Kind of clean that up, a little surface up in there. Make sure it's nice and clean. And the seal that goes in here actually has a lip on it. You can see that. And what's unusual is on this, on the Waterway setup, the spring side of the seal is actually in the volute, where usually the spring side on all other styles, the spring side will be on the back of the impeller. Of course, this is not the right one, but if you have a spring here, then it is not a Waterway. If you have the spring is in the volute like this, it is a Waterway most likely. The Chinese LX, or what we call the Guangdong LX, actually they copied this setup with the seal here, so it looks similar to this. Now to install this, what you're going to do is take a little bit of silicone, not much, don't load it up, just a light coating. All this is going to do is make it slip in easier, and it's also going to seal it, hold it in, and keep it from spinning or anything like that. We offer kits with the silicone. We offer kits that have the silicone and the seal, or just the seal. And some of our kits even come with the seal tool, which all you do is just take the tool and stick it down in there like that. You can see it fits over the seal, and you can just put some pressure on it with your hands and just press it down in there. And you see all I did was just put pressure on that, and it pushed it down in there. You can see it goes all the way in like that. Just make sure it's bottomed out nice. That's it. And that's how you do that side. Now on the other side, let me show you. This is the new style of impeller. This is the old style. On all of my listings, I'm always show the old style because people want it to look like they did, but this is what you're going to get if you order a new one. They've actually changed it, and you can see this looks different. The other thing they did was they actually stamped a part number in it right here, so I can tell by looking at this that this is a 4 horsepower based off the part number. I can tell that this is a 4 horsepower based off of the 4 HP stamped in here. Now the other thing that we were talking about is we were talking about these rings right here. You can see that that one is wider than that one. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, there we go. That one is wider than this one. This one works on 1, 2, and 3 horsepower. This one works on 4 and 5. So they'll both slip on. This is a 3, so this would be the appropriate one for a 3. And you can see this one will go on it, but you see it's that much too short. So that means when it's in the back of the face, it's not going to seal between the suction and the pressure side, and you're not going to have as much power. So that, there's not enough room there, it won't touch. Where this one, if you did a 3 horse, so when you're choosing, this will actually help you determine that it's a 1, 2, or 3, and then you look on the inside and figure out. This will let you know it's a 4 or 5, and then you look on the inside and figure it out. If it's a 4 and a 5 and it doesn't say 4 inside of it, then it's a 5. Remember, the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s actually have a stamping in here. The 1s and the 5s do not. So that's another way you could determine which way it would go. So here we go. We've got a brand new impeller. Now we're going to put this part, which is the ceramic part, down in here. I also put a little silicone on that. I don't put much. I try not to get anything on the surface right here, so try not to touch it, the actual surface of the ceramic. Just put just ever so slightly a little bit on here. So we'll take that and drop it down in there. Take your seal tool and just kind of press it like that. Make sure it's all the way in. Just turn it, go all the way around. Then the next thing I do is take a napkin, just go right around the edge and wipe that silicone off, but keep it off of the ceramic. You don't want that silicone to get on top of the ceramic because it will cause it not to seal. So you wipe it like that. And there you go, installed just like that. So now we have all the components to go back together with the pump. So we're going to mount the volute back to the motor, and then we're going to screw this in. So we're going to put it all together. Stay tuned. Alright, so now what we're going to do is take these nuts off the 3 bolts. We've got the pump ready to go back in, the wet end. Stick our other 3 bolts through. Get them all ready. Okay, the next thing is you remember we marked this. I also always mark the volute before I pull it off so you can see that there's a mark right here. So don't jam these up, even though this is an impact, just go easy. Because the knurls that hold this in place are in plastic, so they will, and you can give it a little boop. Alright, that part is on. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take a flat screwdriver. I'm going to hold the back of the shaft, and I'm going to screw the brand new impeller in. You can see that it goes in just like that. It will thread up and bottom out completely. So that is completely in there. And if you look down in the hole right there, you'll see that right there, there's just a little bit of distance between there and the back. That's exactly right. That's where the seal is pulled up tight, and that looks good. So the next thing we're going to do is put your wear ring on. Then I'm going to put the face on. So the face, you see, it's got a little cutout right there, and it goes here. Now this wet end could be at 12 o'clock. It could be at 9 o'clock. It could be at 3 o'clock. So this particular one is at 12 o'clock. It's turned straight up. So that's why I marked that, so I know. But you remember where it leaked down, you can also use that as a clue if you forgot to mark it. I don't put any silicone or anything on this generally. Sometimes you have to, but generally they'll seal anyway. So you line that part up with that. Just grab that and simply squeeze it in. Just like that right there, and you hear it kind of snap in. And sometimes you'll have to bump it around to make the screw holes line up, but that thing lined up El Perfecto right there. One more. Now what I'm going to do with this is I use my impact the same way. I just use it to run the screws up, not tighten them, just snug. Oop. If you're easy with it, you can do this. If you're hard with it, you'll break the screws out, or the knurl, pull the knurls out, which is no good. What I want to know is, are you scared? If you're not scared, order the parts and fix your own hot tub today. And in my final step, I use a regular screwdriver. Even though I ran it up with an impact, they're not tight. You can see I can just easily turn it, and I torque it, and I do it like I'm doing a set of heads on a 350 Chevy in a cross pattern. And about as much pressure as I can put on it, twisting it like that, is about right. So double check each one of them, go all the way around. I'm not putting any more twist on it, I'm just double checking, making sure that I got every one of them. And there you are, ladies and gents. This is the old parts. I put a new impeller, a new seal. Those parts I didn't put back on, you know why? They don't do anything. And a new bearing. We have kits with seal, we have kits with impeller, we have kits with all of this together. We have them all in our store. So we have a complete Waterway Executive pump, fresh bearing, fresh impeller, fresh seal, all back together, ready to be put right back in the hot tub. I am the spa guy, and I don't know much, but I do know hot tubs. Buy today. Click right here to go to the website to buy these parts. Pumps, wet ends, seals. We got it all.